Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Sharon Bates with me here today. Sharon has been a computer programmer for over 30 years and recently retired to run the Anthony Bates Foundation, which she founded after the untimely death of her only child. Her main goal is to bring awareness of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy into communities throughout the country. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me.
All right, so why don't you go ahead and give us a snapshot of where the program is at right now?
Well, we're 24 years in, and most nonprofits fold within 4 to 5 years. Wow. So I think we're doing some pretty good work, and we're really excited about the future and what we have to offer the communities we serve. This is a wonderful thing.
Right. Okay. So do you mind sharing a little background for what
Sure.
it is and what you do?
Well, first I have to talk about Anthony because he was my only child, and he had always loved sports and always wanted to play football. And he got selected to be on the Kansas State University squad back in 1999, but nobody ever checked his heart.
Right.
And we didn't have family history. We didn't have any knowledge of what hypertrophic cardiomyopathy was, which is an enlarged heart.
Sure.
He had over 20 different sports physicals because we moved a little bit. And it was just a tragic experience. Sure. And you can't put into words what this was like, but I know that there are parents that are going to be listening that know what it's like. And we started the foundation right away after he passed to do screenings. And Coach Bill Snyder said, "You got to do it, Sharon. You got the story." Right. So when the coach tells you what to do, you have something to do, you do it. That's how my son taught me. The coach said I have to do this. So here I am today. And we are over almost 20,000 people screened. And we find 1 in 4 or 1 in 7 have a heart issue, and 1 in 40 is a possible life-threatening issue. Oh, wow. So what we're doing is saving lives.
For sure.
And on top of that, I've trained over 100 organizations across the United States, and they've screened 1.6 million, saving nearly 50,000 lives.
Wow.
That's
great.
Awesome.
Yes, it is.
Except there are 74 million children in our country. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
Sure. For people who may not be aware, often my son's played in lots of sports, and the physical's pretty cursory normally, right?
Yeah.
Even if they would check the heart, they wouldn't check it properly enough to find something.
Check the heart. Yeah, it's pretty sad. We've been using the same model of sports physicals for 50 plus years, and they don't work because we're losing over 300,000 people to sudden cardiac arrest every year in our country, and 23,000 happen to be children. Oh, that's a whole busload of children every single day suffering a sudden cardiac arrest. And on top of that, our statistics are only 10% survive. Oof. So we are losing way too many people to something that's preventable.
At the upper levels, professional sports, you don't really see that. Well, there was the Bills player recent. When was that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Damar Hamlin had a sudden cardiac arrest on national television in January 2nd of 2023. Okay. He is now advocating for AEDs in schools and CPR training for everybody. That's what saved his life.
Right.
And he had a healthy heart. He just got commotocordiosis, which is a blow to the chest at the right and perfect time when the heart was empty of blood and it couldn't refill and beat properly. So that's what caused his sudden cardiac arrest.
Right.
And then there's Bronny James.
Is critical.
And Bronny James had a sudden cardiac arrest at USC, and that was the same year, but in June, I believe. He had a congenital heart defect that was corrected, and now he's on the NBA team with the Lakers with his father. So it's just when you're in the right place at the right time, things can happen for you, like for Damar and like for Bronny. But for kids like Caesar Vasquez, he died in his sleep, and he was a football player at Centennial High School. So you just
horrible.
You can't just say, oh, let's just save the athletes when other people are dying.
Sure.
So there's just so much work to be done.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about that. What sort of bigger scope screening have you been able to implement, and what are your goals?
Well, we have some really high goals. One is to introduce AI into the interpretation of ECGs, which is electrocardiograms. The ECGs, you put the stickers on. The echocardiogram, what I also do, you put the gel on the chest and you look at the structure. But those are very expensive tests, and we can't do that for 74 million children. But we could potentially do ECGs because those electrodes only cost $1.
Okay.
So each person, $1. So why can't we do that for our children and use AI to determine who are the red flags and how can we get them to the right care? If we don't know who they are, they're just going to be a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
Sure. And so what's the program you'd like to implement? Let's go with that.
Well, the program would be that during the wellness checks, like they do in Japan, kindergartners, seventh graders, and high schoolers all get screened throughout their growing years. They get an ECG, and they're trained, the community is trained to recognize symptoms to get them to the right care they need. But in our case, we have 10,000 pediatricians for 74 million children, and we only have 3,000 pediatric cardiologists. So I'm sure that if we flooded those 3,000 with the need to review screenings, that would be too much. That's why we need AI to be able to interpret those ECGs and get just the red flags, the 5%, into those 3,000 doctors that need it. And so if we do the pediatricians, if the pediatricians actually can handle the ECG and get the interpretation through the app or the computer, then we'd be covering our bases.
Right. And it's not quite like a blood pressure cuff where you could automate it completely, but I could envision something similar, actually, depending upon the technology. You'd be able to have an assistant, right? You don't have to have doctor time exactly.
Exactly. So a medical assistant can actually put the electrodes on. The Anthony Bates Foundation also has an ECG certification course that can help train those MAs if they need extra training on that. But the point is we can do this with what we have in place. We just need to get machines available and technicians available.
Okay. Have you been able to implement any sort of like trial programs throughout the years where you like I've seen for some things that are really high tech, but just you have a van that with the technology on it, and everybody just runs through the van and they all get tested as they go through?
There's a great group that I also trained in Florida called Who We Play For, and they have the trials going in their group. And they're also running these screenings through their AI project so that they can get a 95+% of good readings, because doctors don't want to just throw something in to their office that has a, say, 50% false positive. Right. You gotta get it up higher so they're accepting of it.
Sure. And I imagine there'll be people who would opt out of such things, but basically you could bring the facilities to the schools, which probably the easiest target.
Right. And school nurses, for instance, in Texas, school nurses and athletic trainers are actually doing the ECGs in their schools for the athletes. Some are doing it for everybody, but most of it is for the athletes. And in our case, we believe that everybody should be screened, just because you're human, not because you're going to be a superstar.
Right. And is about every 5 years the goal then? You said kindergarten, seventh grade, in high
Well,
school again.
right. And for us, we recommend, and even the American Heart Association recommends, some kind of heart screening every 2 years when you're growing.
Okay.
Because your heart changes every 6 months, but that doesn't mean that you can get a screening every 6 months. You don't necessarily have the availability, and especially if you're in the rural areas, what are they going to do? They don't even have doctors on a regular basis. So
Right.
we have a lot of things to work out, but it's good that that people are excited about it.
Okay. Have you been able to join forces with any other programs, right? Any sort of cardiovascular, childhood obesity, anything like that to make bigger impact?
Well, there's an organization in our country called Parent Heart Watch. And
Okay.
this organization, I'm a co-founder, and we just had our 20th anniversary meeting this last weekend. We were in Portland, Oregon. We changed the meeting around the country so that other parents can meet up. It's
Sure.
more cost effective for us to move. But that organization helps support each other as well as partnering and having collaborative efforts. And that's why, training organizations as well as supporting organizations and partnering with them is a good plus for everybody.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the other partners you've had or have?
Well, I also do research. So some of my research, I partner with Dr. Movahead. He's a American Heart Association doctor, as well as a cardiologist, and we get papers published because of the data that we've collected over the years. And American Heart Association partners with the Anthony Bates Foundation. I partner with a Bash's food store, and we get donations from the checkout.
Okay.
So there's great partners in everything we do. We partner with school districts all over Arizona, and Peoria, one of them, a large school district, as well as Mesa and Apache Junction, Tucson. It's just a huge list of friends that want our support as well as help us advocate for change.
Excellent. So a lot of your efforts been local? Have the largely like Arizona has benefited from the foundation the most so far?
Arizona has benefited the most because I live here and I don't like that thing called winter. So every once in a while I leave and then I come back and go, oh, it's too cold. Like Portland, oh,
Right.
it's too cold. But I did screenings in Kansas and got them started. So Kansas State University is doing their own screenings since 2018. And
Okay.
so I don't go back to Kansas much, but I do go to Colorado and do screenings there. We have a goal to actually screen in Utah and Indiana and California. There are teams in other areas like in Florida and South Carolina that are doing screenings with us, that are partnering with us. So
Okay.
that's
Excellent.
a good plus. That's where the 1.6 million people screened comes from. And from the weekend meeting that we had, I've got to update my numbers because I think it's well over 2 million. But
Nice.
first, I got to update the numbers. So,
Okay. Okay. So a lot of them are sports related so far.
um, yes and no. I mean, when I go into the schools, it's open to the public.
Okay.
So we screen children and adults. We do the EKG, the echocardiogram, the blood pressure check, all reviewed by our volunteer cardiologists. In some cases, some organizations have to pay their cardiologists to interpret their tests. But for us, 24 years in, we're still begging for help. So it's a good thing
Right.
that they love what we do. And for the most part, we're giving them business, so they should be volunteering. It's just a win-win-win for everybody, and that's the
Right.
good part about what we do.
Right. And before you mentioned winter and being and then you mentioned Florida and we're recording this in January early 2025 and it just snowed in Florida pretty good. I have
Yes.
friends over there and wondering what the heck's going on. Um, uh, let's see. So, local sports teams, do you have any particular focus amongst the Phoenix community?
Well, we do have a great partnership with the Phoenix Suns. They have been donating to us for well over 10 years,
Okay.
not just signed basketballs, the occasional signed basketball or tickets to give away. They actually gave us cash, and we appreciate that because that helps us keep the lights on.
Sure,
So,
sure.
so the Phoenix Suns are our great partner. We also are placing an automatic external defibrillator with a save station tower at the Phoenix Rising, and that's the
Okay.
soccer
Right.
venue where they practice, and there'll be hundreds and hundreds of youth that actually practice there too. So protecting the team as well as the youth is very ideal for
For
us
sure.
and for them.
For sure. Okay.
Let's see.
Uh,
And you can't forget the Cardinals. The Cardinals are friends too. They've been donating to us for just as long, if not longer, than the Phoenix Suns. So it's wonderful to have their partnership as well.
okay. Excellent. What are some of the biggest challenges you have moving forward? Is it support? Is it funding? Is it just education?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems we've had in the last even just 12 months, Arizona schools are strapped for money. They are strapped to pay their teachers. They are strapped to actually have good education for the kids. And it's hard to get them to do an extra thing like host a cardiac screening on the weekend
Right.
and even just advertising. And if we can't get 50 appointments for one event, we can't roll out our van. It's just not cost effective. So I've been doing screenings in my office since I became an ultrasound tech during COVID, and
Okay.
now I can do the screenings, the EKGs, the echocardiograms, blood pressure checks. We can do that here for $20 for a youth and $90 for an adult. And when we roll it out to a school, it's $25 for a youth and 95 for an adult. So
Okay.
it's very, very cost effective. These tests cost about $100 each, just my costs. But
Okay.
when it comes down to the reality, when you only have to pay $1 for the electrodes and your
Right.
machines were donated from grants that you wrote, it becomes
Right.
very cost effective for us to
For
lower
sure.
our fees. And still, our doctors aren't charging us $250 an hour to read
Right.
our interpretations. So it's win-win-win. Pass it
Right.
on.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
more could you ask for, right? You
Yeah.
worked out so much of the hurdles.
Well, I could ask for $1 million because we need to pay for more people. I need
Sure.
more people in here so that we can do a bigger bang for our buck. So having just two to four staff members, it's just bare bones and small, but we can be bigger if we had more money and we had more people.
Sure.
So
For sure. For
anybody
sure.
want a job?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
such an impact, right? Doing
Yeah.
saving
Yeah.
lives. It doesn't get any more rewarding than that.
It's
Uh,
it's really, really addicting when you save a life. We had a young man named Sam who came into our screening back in 2013. He was 14 years old at the time. Turns out he had Wolff Parkinson's White, which is an electrical problem with his heart. He went to Phoenix Children 2 weeks later and had it fixed. He's a
right.
volunteer. His family helps support us as we move forward. We love him. He's it's one of those great stories that you like to see and hear.
For
And
sure.
Piper Midkiff, she had a sudden cardiac arrest on the soccer field 2 years ago. Turns out she had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same thing my son had, and she survived because another mother did CPR for her, and the AED was used when the EMTs arrived right away. But her twin sister was also diagnosed. So they both have HCM and they're
Right.
both reeling with this, awful disease because there is no cure. and there is no way to stop that, our heart from growing. There's some new medications that are brand new. I mean, I'm talking only on the market for the last year, and some trials are being done for children with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Adults are seeing great response from that. So it's a good thing. It's a good time to be alive with this disease, because there's some opportunities there to help support their life, because you can live a wonderful life even with HCM.
Sure.
You just have to have different lifestyle changes.
And be aware of it.
Right,
That's the
right.
first step.
Right. You don't take the stairs, you take the elevator, because you get short of breath. So you just have to adjust. Yeah.
So if you want, go ahead.
No, it's just a good time to be alive.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. If you wanted to get it on the school days, not like expecting people to bring kids into schools on weekends and stuff, but to implement it, what sort of local government support would you need for that? And have you looked into that, trying to make it not mandatory, but
Well,
get it into the standard operating?
we have done that in the past. Just this last year, we went into a school. It was a sports heavy school
Okay.
in the Gilbert area. And they wanted us to come in during the school day, which
Okay.
is great. We can do that. I'm here just writing grants during the week, you know. So so we went in there and screened their athletes, and that was a wonderful thing. And we also are connected to Arizona nursing schools that help support us with their volunteerism. And so during the week, they can help us as well. So it's been a great connection. If somebody wants us to come in during the school day, we can do that. The challenge is taking children away from their learning hours. And
Sure.
that's what I've been, the feedback I've received for 24 years. You can't do that during the week. And but if the administrative is game, I'm game. So
So that sounds like a pretty big hurdle that they don't want to take kids out of. It seems like you just rotate them out, right? 10 at a
right,
time as they go get
they
in
have
line.
PE classes, they have
Yeah,
health classes. There's different classes that they could,
for
get in
sure.
and out of. And the more stations we have, the quicker we can get them in and out.
Right.
So we usually have 4 echo machines and 8 EKG machines at our high schools when we do the big ones. But for small ones in the school day, we would probably have 2 and 2, just because we're not going to have 400 children coming in at once like they do in our large weekend events.
Right.
So
Okay. So yeah,
it's a
it sounds like,
logistics. It's logistics. You gotta
it's not
figure it out.
insurmountable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sounds like their answer to why you can't do it is very unsatisfactory.
Yes. Just keep pushing. That's what I do. I just keep pushing. Oh, here comes
Okay.
Sharon again.
Okay. At what level do you need to lobby, I guess, to make that
Well,
happen?
we screen 10 years and up. So that becomes the challenge. That's junior high, maybe some elementary children. I
Right.
still have families bringing their little ones in that are younger, only because they have family history and they want to be sure that their children
Sure.
are healthy. But as I tell them, every 2 years, bring your child back, because they're going to grow. Things can happen, things can change. So, and for adults, it's every 5 years they need to get their hearts checked, because they've had a few hamburgers, cheeseburgers, it's time. Heart disease doesn't start when you're 50. A lot of
Right.
times it starts when you're born. So let's take care of them.
Right. Okay. So do you have any initiatives for 2025 you're rolling out?
I am going to screen more hearts and save more lives. Same as always.
All
Same as
right.
always. But I'm going
Excellent.
to do more. We're advocating to screen 10,000 hearts this year and train 1,000 Black and brown youth in ECG certification. So that is going to be a big initiative that's going to take some team members of the Anthony Bates Foundation to help with that heavy lift. So I'm excited about it. It'll be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So Sharon, if people would like to connect with you or learn more about the foundation, what should they do?
Well, we have a website, anthonybates.org, and they can also donate on our website at anthonybates.org/donations. And if they want to volunteer, there's a volunteer page when we have events open. I'm going to open up an event for March 1st at Boulder Creek High School, and we'll need volunteers. And you can also book appointments at our office or at the Boulder Creek High School event. So it'll be fun.
Excellent. All
Oh,
right,
and
well,
on top of that, Anthony Bates Foundation is an Arizona qualified nonprofit. So when people donate, they get a state tax credit for that donation. So that really helps too. So
yes, it does.
the more the merrier. Come and be my friend.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Thank you very much, Sharon Bates, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and your insights into heart health and sharing your foundation and the impact you're making here in Phoenix.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.